Are they linked in the things?
Some, yes, but these
Are they from the first half or the second half of the lecture?
This will be the first half.
Okay.
This is how I begin class. You can listen to the music and tell me what they think.
Are they not? Are
And
they
then
not?
we go to the story.
Okay. So how do we want to?
Okay, I had no idea. Like,
Yeah,
how would you?
I put it in the email, but it may have been buried.
Yeah.
Okay.
No, probably.
Totally fine. I can pull up YouTube on mine.
Okay. Okay. This for you. Sorry.
So
I'm sending the links.
I'm sending this.
Yes.
That's a good idea.
Well, you will be one, but okay, so wait, I can't. The wanders from. It's not yours. I'm the one who's.
While we're waiting, please tell your neighbors something you remember about Muhammad and the Quran. What made the Quran special? Why, within the Islamic worldview, did the Quran need to happen? Tell your neighbor what you remember.
Stumbling.
Yeah. Sent. Yeah, look, here it is. Okay.
Okay. Here are the links. So they'll just be in this tab
Yes,
here.
yes, those 3 tabs.
Okay.
Will be
So we'll
always-
come over here.
Let me close this one. I like this.
That's my little brother.
Oh.
Okay, when you do the links, you'll need to just turn this on. This one, do you know? I'll just do it right now.
Okay.
There you go.
Good.
So you'll want to stay fairly close to here so that it picks you up.
Awesome.
All right, everyone, we're going to go ahead and get started. Hopefully you all have today's packet. Today we're going to get a lecture about the Horn of Africa in the pre-modern period. So please welcome Bahari Wanku.
Hi. Thank you, Kat. When Professor Kat told me that, okay, we are going to have this session with stories, I started to think about it. Okay, how do I want them to be exposed to the region? Because this is a very interesting region. And for the most part, what people know about this region is quite often distorted, minimized, oversimplified, or disproportionately exaggerated. Okay. So that's why I brought this little package for you to encounter the region through the texts that come from premodern times. So this is a region that's usually represented in regular maps like this. Okay. Not to sound too critical or too negative, but what's wrong with this map? Yes, please.
All right.
Thank you. What's your name? Thank you, Yusuf. Yes. the size of the continents is disproportionate compared to the real sizes of the continents. In particular, look how small Africa is. And this actually is not just a cartographic representation of Africa. This is the attitude, the governing attitude towards Africa and whatever is in Africa by outsiders, whether they are from this or that part of the world. It doesn't matter. To the left or to the right side or to the top and the bottom ones, so far they haven't said anything because they are penguins. But the ones I have, the rest they have, the way they see Africa is like, yeah, the centers are over there, and Africa is this peripheral region, it's just the far, like the farthest and the darkest and the remotest part of this planet. So this is the African Union kind of disputing that. Okay. This is how big Africa is. You can put the US, Spain, France, Germany, Portugal, Italy, Peru, India, Japan, the whole of China, and the UK. And you can also sprinkle all those Eastern European countries in the middle. It's like, yep. There is still more space if you want to fit in more countries. So this is a huge continent. Anybody can guess how many languages are there that there are in Africa? Guess. Okay, there are about 2,000 plus languages. So this is a very diverse region, a very diverse continent that we are talking about. And the Horn of this region we call the Horn of Africa is right here. Okay, if you think of the map of Africa as the face of a rhino, that is the horn. That is the horn right there. And that's the Horn of Africa that we will be talking about. So this region is a very important region in paleontology, in anthropology. Why? Because this is where, when they explain the human ancestry, human evolutionary development, this is where they begin usually. Okay, there is a significant development that happened in this region, particularly this one species, Australopithecus afarensis. This is a very important one. This is how she would have looked like according to AI, and thanks to the Smithsonian's. Based on the little remains that we have from this species. This region, now we can't go in depth into the paleontology and everything, but I want to bring your attention to this one important thing: trade and geopolitics. Here I have this video for you. Okay. Oops. Okay. Yes, this one.
Gonna need to
Djibouti, this small East African country with a population of 1 million, is considered the most important and dangerous country in the world due to its excellent geopolitical location. This small country has military bases of all major.
Okay, we are going to talk about this one little small country. Probably some of you have heard about it. It's called Djibouti. Okay. It's a very small country. The population is somewhere around 1 million people. And I said around. Okay, it can be less or a little more. 1 million people. And listen to it.
The world, including America, Japan, China, Italy, France, Germany, and Spain, etc. After all, what is so special about Djibouti that all the superpowers of the world have built military bases?
How many countries did you count? The US, China, Japan, Spain, Germany, France, Italy, and etc. there are others who have military bases in this region. Why is this region, what this particular country so important to have all these military bases? Like the US and China have big military bases there. Actually, China has the largest military base in the entire world. Like from all its other military deployment sites, small deployment sites, this is the largest that they have. And this is the one that they recognize that this is our military base. Okay, the rest kind of silent.
Sheikh Bab al-Mandab, located in the east of Djibouti through the Suez Canal, is the world's trade route. The ongoing civil war in Yemen near the Bab al-Mandab dictatorship in Eritrea, and it became a common thing for Somali bandits to attack and loot these commercial containers. All these superpowers built their own military bases to provide security to their trade ships, because any threat to Bab al-Mandab means the death of the entire world economy.
Okay,
Djibouti, this small
That's it.
East African
good. Now, this is why it's important. Today, all these military bases reside in this area because this is one of the major trade routes in the world for international trade. Somewhere around 11 to 15% of world trade passes through this. Somewhere around half of European trade, Western European trade passes through this. So it's a very important lifeline, trade lifeline for the rest of the world. So it's very important today, but not just today. Even back in the days, this region, this sea we call the Red Sea, was important in trade. Because of this, there was this it was a kind of a melting pot of cultures. There were these multiple ports and trade activity that invited people to this region and also allowed cultural mixtures and cultural exchange to happen. Okay, I want you to keep this in mind. Another thing I would like you to think about is this. Okay. Hold on a second. Yep. Okay. Cat.
Drag, yeah. Browser out of the way.
Okay. This one, I think I can close it now.
Yeah.
Are we here? Okay.
Drag. I can find the cursor. There's the cursor.
So. Okay. So this region, as you can see, it is right at the border of all historically, like these major powers that you know in history. Here you have the Roman Empire in Europe across the Mediterranean Sea. Here you have Egypt over here. And then here you have all the ancient civilizations and the Fertile Crescent and all that. And the trade that was happening in this region, it also, whenever it is connected to India and the rest of Asia, it passes through this region. This sea we call the Red Sea. So the people of the Horn of Africa, since time immemorial, were connected to whatever was happening to the northern part of the world. Not only that, but also to the southern, but our focus today is to the northern parts of the world. So we will focus on how these people, the people of the Horn of Africa, are connected to the northern parts of the globe's civilizations, particularly the civilizations that flourished around the Middle East. Now I would like to take you to the first page of that package that we gave you. So what do you see there? The story of the Queen of Sheba. Anybody has any idea about that? The Queen of Sheba. What is that? Who is she? Any thoughts? Okay. This is from the Bible. The Bible is actually, it comes from the Hebrew Bible. Okay. There is a book in the Bible called First Kings. And if you go there to chapter 10 and verse 1 to 13, you will find this story. It is a story that is trying to tell us what happened 1,000 years before the Common Era. Okay, 1,000 years before. And what happened? Well, it tells us that there was this queen from this place called Saba. Later it will be called the South, wherever that South is. And she traveled all the way to Jerusalem to greet this great king named Solomon. So she traveled and met him, we are told. And AI kind of gives you this kind of very ostentatious pictures. I like them. Very ostentatious pictures. So the Queen of Sheba went to visit Solomon and she met him, and she was mesmerized by his wisdom and the riches of his kingdom. And that's all this story tells us. And that's all the Bible tells us about this queen. Well, the Quran, after 1,600 years later, tells us a little different version of the story. You will find this in the second paragraph here, Surah Al-Naml. And this queen, she particularly has a name, and she's Bilqis, we are told. And this lady actually had some conversation or discussion that she had to do with the chieftains in her kingdom. And then actually, even though the Bible says she went to Solomon willingly to visit him, here she actually was coerced by Solomon to pay a visit. Okay. Why are these stories, or why this figure, the Queen of Sheba, why was she important? She is also mentioned in the Gospel of Matthew in the Christian New Testament. The Queen of the South will rise against this generation and will condemn me, because she came from all the way from the South to visit, to look for wisdom. But behold, there is the one greater than Solomon himself. That's how the New Testament has it. So why is this figure important? This figure and the place that is called Sheba or Saba is debatable where it is. Well, the people in the Horn of Africa would like to tell you something a little different. They say, we know where that is. And you may say, where is that? And they will say, it is us. We are the Saba people. She is our queen. And she went to Solomon. Yep, because we are, good people and we seek for wisdom. This story actually is disputed by the Yemenis. The Yemenis would say, no. You guys are not the people of Saba. It is us who are the people of Saba. And we have some evidences to show that. Well, all claims, good claims, and this story is very important for the identity formation of these people. But the one thing that we need to take is this region today is politically divided into multiple countries. These political borders are new inventions in world history. The people of the region have been moving from this part to that part and from that part to the other part much more freely than today back in the days. So there was a lot of sharing a lot of moving, a lot of common history and heritage. Okay. So this story tells you, as it is claimed by people from both sides of the Red Sea, that there is a common history, a common culture, a common interest in history for these two people today who are living on two sides of the Red Sea. That means this region, historically speaking, can be considered as one block to be studied and to be pondered at. It's one block. Because this region, as you saw earlier, today is guarded by all these military bases because this little passageway we call the Gulf of Aden or Bab el-Mandeb is a very narrow passage. Even back in the days, you can cross with a little boat. So it was not difficult for people to cross. They didn't need visas. They didn't need passports. They just needed to have goodwill. That's all that mattered back in the days. Today we have a lot more hurdles and hoops and loops to go through. So there is that common story. So the people, the history of the Horn of Africa, the literature of the Horn of Africa, it is shared with the people across the region. What we call today Arabia in Africa was pretty much a mishmash of people. Okay. All right. Now, this story about the Queen of Sheba in Ethiopia gave birth to a very interesting story. This story would be the grand political narrative for the people of the region for the next, particularly after 1270. All the way to 1974. From 1270 to 1974, the region would be, particularly the region's politics would be dominated by one dynasty. This dynasty is called the Solomonic dynasty. According to this dynasty, the Queen of Sheba, when she went to visit Solomon to Israel, Solomon, how many wives did he have? And how many concubines? And she's a queen, and she comes from us, the beautiful people of the Horn of Africa. So do you think Solomon would be just sitting on his throne and looking at this beauty and say like, oh yeah, this is just a diplomatic visit and she can go freely home? No, that didn't happen. This grand political narrative tells us. Instead, she gave the gifts like this, and then something like this happened. AI inventing all this, okay? Something like this happened, meaning Solomon, of course, was captivated by her beauty. So something like this happened. She got pregnant. The story is long, okay? I can't tell you all the details. He tricked her into loving him, to put it very briefly. So when she came back from Jerusalem, from the diplomatic visit, she was carrying this amazing diplomatic gift from the Middle East to the Horn of Africa, and this was a baby. And this baby, his name would be Menelik. He would be born in the Horn of Africa, and then he would be named as Ben Hamelech, the child of the king, the son of the king. But the people of the Horn of Africa do not know Hebrew. So Ben Hamelech's like, what? What's your name? And the mom, from her exposure to the Middle East, she has picked up the Hebrew language. So she named him Ben Hamelech. And the people couldn't figure out like what she's saying. Like, who Ben Hamelech. No. Like, Menelech? Okay, yeah, Menelik. So we'll call him Menelik. So he ended up being Menelik. This is folk etymology. And then this guy, young people, he's a spoiled brat. So what can you do? He grows up and it's like, Mom, where is my dad? Where's my dad? I need to see my dad. And Mom said, your dad is across the Red Sea, all the way in the Middle East. So this young man goes to Solomon to visit him. And Solomon saw him and was like, oh, this is my son. I like him. And then, to put it shortly, after a little while, he had to leave from Israel back to Ethiopia, this young man, after visiting his dad. So when he came back to Ethiopia, however, we are told he didn't come empty-handed. Instead, he stole the Ark of the Covenant. Do you know, anybody knows the Ark of the Covenant? It is a big box, and it was the center of worship for the Jewish people. And we are told this guy, this Horn of African guy, when he went to Jerusalem, he went and stole it. How did he do it? Like this? Probably like stealing it and running away. Or like this? That might require to be a Superman to lift up somewhere around 600-pound this box. Okay, so probably he didn't do it this way. Probably he did it this way. We are told he did it this way with some collaborators. And the story tells you, actually, he didn't simply stole it. There were some priests who complained about him being in Jerusalem. And they wanted him to go away back to his country. And Solomon said, you want to send my son back to his home, away from my eyes? And they say, yes, sir. We can't have two kings. And they're, okay. But because I am a king and this is my son, you are priests, so your sons should also accompany my son back to Ethiopia. And they said, okay. And instead of political upheaval, we'll send our sons to Ethiopia. And this is a very easy story. So this is a story. Okay. So these sons of the priests, they are by default, they are priests. So they say, like, what? Our parents are sending us to a foreign land? What are we going to be? No Ark of the Covenant, no worship. So what are we going to do? Okay, we have to figure out something. What should we do? How about stealing the Ark of the Covenant and going to Ethiopia? This way, we will still have our priesthood with us and our worship, our liturgical services. So we still will be relevant. So probably they did it this way, we are told. Okay. And according to this grand political narrative of the Solomonic dynasty, these people came to Ethiopia, established the Jewish liturgical services in Ethiopia, making Ethiopia a Jewish nation, making the Horn of Africa a Jewish nation, until the 4th century, where Christianity would take over. Actually, they push it a little back, 300 years back, and in the 1st century, the Horn of Africa became a Christian, we are told. We'll come to that. So this is the story, the grand political narrative that was told by the Solomonic dynasty. Why was this story important for the Solomonic dynasty? Because the Solomonic dynasty kings claimed that they are the descendants of this very interesting diplomatic incident that happened between the Queen of Sheba and King Solomon. Does this make sense? Good? All right. So we are told the Ark of the Covenant, probably on YouTube or somewhere else you have seen all the Ark of the Covenant is found in Ethiopia, or the Ethiopians claim the Ark of the Covenant is still there. Yes, they still claim that the Ark of the Covenant is still there. Yes, but nobody can see. But the story was important for the political establishment of the country for about how many years? 724 years. It's almost 8th century, give and take. Okay. 8 centuries for one grand political narrative. Okay. Now, this is the story. How about the history? What really was in the region? Was the region really a Jewish state, a Jewish kingdom, a Jewish empire? We don't have anything against it if it was, but let's look at some of the evidences that we have. What do we see there? Now, please go to the second page or the third page. The third page. In the third page, what do you have there? The first text. What is that? Izana's inscription. That's what it says, right? Izana's inscription. Who is Izana? Well, you'll figure it out. Listen. Izana, the son of Illa Amida, of the family of Helen, king of Aksum and of Himyar, and of Raidan, and of Saba, and of Salhen, and of Sayamo, and of Beja, and of Kasu, the son of Mahram, who cannot be conquered by the enemy. He made war on the Sarane, whose kingdom is Afan. Then he goes on about his war exploits. This is taken from inscription, stone inscription left by this king in the 4th century, the first half of the 4th century. And he's telling us about himself that he is the ruler of all these regions, okay? Aksum, Himyar, Raidan, Saba, Salhen, Sayamo, Beja, Kasu. And then he tells us he is the son of Mahram. Who is Mahram? He already told us he was the son of Illa Amida. And then we have the son of Mahram. Any guess who Mahram is? How can he be the son of 2 fathers? Illa Amida was his father, his biological father. And Mahram is? Yes, you raised your hand? Say that again.
The Kaaba in Saudi Arabia is sometimes referred as
Mahram, yes. Yes. This is the name of one of the gods in Saudi Arabia and the Horn of Africa, Mahram. This god is the god of war. You know the word haram. You know the word harem. They share the same root. It means to put a ban on something. So this is Mahram, the god of war. And Izana, the king Izana is telling us he's the son of Mahram. That means, he tells you, cannot be conquered by the enemy. You don't want to mess with him. That's what he's saying. Okay, this person definitely is not a Jew, right? This person is not following the Jewish faith. The Queen Sheba story, however interesting it is, doesn't seem to have trickled down here. Now, go to the last paragraph of this text. No, sorry, the penultimate paragraph, the one before the last one. Of his camp followers, there were taken prisoners, men 40, women and children 165, in all 205. As spoils were carried off 31,957 cattle, baggage animals 827, and the king returned safely together with his people and set up a throne here in Saho. This is where the inscription was set. And committed himself to the protection of Astar, Beher, and Midir. These are also gods, the gods that they were worshipping. Beher is, the equivalent will be Poseidon, Midir will be Gaia, and Astar will be Ishtar. And then in the next paragraph, the last paragraph, you have particularly the last sentence. He, meaning the king, offered as a thank offering to Mahram, who had begotten him, 100 cattle and read the last phrase, please. And 50 prisoners, 100 cattle and 50 prisoners. What do you think offering 50 prisoners look like? Exactly, yeah. That's human sacrifice. Very likely human sacrifice. So the cattle and the prisoners were offered to Mahram. This definitely is not according to the Queen Sheba narrative. Okay? So this was a region that had its own belief systems. Okay? Different from, connected to the other part, the eastern shores of the Red Sea, and also all these gods, the Ishtars, and Ishtar is a very known goddess in the Fertile Crescent. So whatever, like the belief system in this region was connected to the belief systems that you see in the Fertile Crescent, but also it had its own uniqueness. Okay, you can also trace or connect it to Greek mythologies. Okay, the appropriation and indigenization of Greek mythologies also was happening. Why? Remember what I told you about this region. It is a melting pot. It is a trade route. So all these cultures, they mix there and they get indigenized there. Does this make sense so far? Okay. Then something happened somewhere like between 20 or 30 years after this inscription. We have another inscription from the same king. Here we have clearly Christian king. In the faith of God and the power of the Father and the Son and the Holy Spirit, who have saved my kingdom. Okay. This is 4th century. At this time, as far as we know, the Roman Empire was not officially a Christian empire. It had some tolerance policies towards Christians. The only Christian empire or Christian kingdom in the world, as far as we know at this time, was the Armenian kingdom. So this probably is the second Christian kingdom in the history of the world that we are looking at. The state from indigenous belief systems shifted to Christianity. But look at the focus. The focus is still his kingdom. The gods are changed, but the focus of, or the work of the gods, or the work that the kingdom wants from the gods, it remains the same. It is protection. How does this go along with Christian theology? That is a different question for a different class. Okay, but this is definitely a sign of indigenization of Christianity. Look at the second sentence. Through the might of the Lord of heaven, who is victorious in heaven and over all the earth. Izana, the son of Illa Amida, the tribe of Helen, the same continues. The king of Aksum and Himyar, Raidan, Saba, Salhin, Siyamo, Bega, Kasu, the king of kings, the son of Illa Amida, who will not be defeated by the enemy. It was the son of Mahram, right? Now it is the son of Illa Amida. It was just his biological father who's mentioned. Through the might of the Lord of heaven, who has created me, of the Lord of all, by whom the king is loved, who will not be defeated by the enemy. It was Mahram who would not be defeated by the enemy. Now this description of the God, or like being invincible power, is given to his father, his biological father, Illa Amida, and also to the Christian God. No foe shall stand before me. And he goes on and on. I will leave the rest for you to read. and there is no human sacrifice at the end. Yes, the indigenization doesn't include that. Okay. So what we see here is a shift. The shift is from indigenous belief systems to appropriation of a belief system that flourished across the Mediterranean region and also Southern Arabia at this time in history. The Ethiopians today would like to talk about the book of Acts, chapter 8, and the Ethiopian eunuch, the Ethiopian chamberlain who went to Jerusalem and who got baptized and who became a Christian in the first century. Okay. That story will take us to a different place. Okay. Which would be the western part of the Ethiopian, in today's Ethiopia's borders and the Nubian kingdoms. For now, we will just skip that. Because our focus, I want it to be more to be on the western shores of the Red Sea and the Indian Ocean, the coastal line, that coastal line. Okay, now, whatever happened in the 4th century, today we have people known as the Ethiopian Jews. And the Ethiopian Jews, as you can see, they have a kippah, and the kippah is with the Ethiopian flag. This is them going to Israel in the national carrier, the Ethiopian Airlines. So you see that flag, and then they are holding the flag of Israel. These are the Ethiopian Jews. These people, the Ethiopian Jews, when you ask them, like, wait a minute, how did you come about? Like, how did you start in this living in this region? They have different ethnogenesis. We can't go into the details, but one of the ethnogenesis relates that they were the descendants of those people who stole the Ark of the Covenant and came to Ethiopia. There is another one that tells you, like, oh no, actually we came even before that. When Moses and the other Israelites came out of Egypt, you know, some of the Israelites say, like, we want to go to the Middle East. Why? Let's follow the Nile and come down to the south, and we will find a nice spot. And they did. So while Moses and his people went northwards, some of them came southwards, they say. Okay. The other one says, no, we came during the Babylonian exile. There is another ethnogenesis there. But whatever happened, we don't know. Yes, please.
Like their patriotism or their loyalty, would that be to?
That's a very interesting question. Today, the number of Ethiopian Jews in Ethiopia is very small compared to what used to be, because in the 1980s and 90s, there was this big operation of moving people from Ethiopia, like these Ethiopian Jews, to Israel. So when they are in Israel, probably they will feel more Ethiopian. When they are in Ethiopia, probably they will feel more Israelite. Okay. I have this video for us to look at. Okay. Ooh. Yes, I definitely need your help with this video. This one.
Okay. Get there's the cursor.
Yes. Yeah.
Okay. I think
Can we open?
will it just,
Oh.
okay, open. We can try that. All right.
For nearly 50 years, our phrase.
Not this one. This is the commercial. This is a commercial I have no clue about. Okay. These are Ethiopian Jews doing their liturgical chanting in Israel. Yes. Thank you.
Play button.
Okay. Okay. This is a liturgical chanting that developed in Ethiopia. These are Ethiopian Jews in Israel using their liturgical chanting. Okay. This is the African drum, the known African drum, and that particularly is related to what we call the system of Isis. We'll see a different version of it with Ethiopian Christians. Sorry, there is a background. Okay, sorry. He's speaking in Hebrew. Look how the beat changes. I will show you something similar to this. They are chanting using this very ancient Ethiopian language called Ethiopic or Ge'ez. Okay? It is a Semitic language. It is related to all the other Semitic languages. And it is the liturgical language of Ethiopian Jews and Ethiopian Christians. It is still in use. It is still in use in Ethiopia, in Eritrea, among Ethiopian Jews and Ethiopian Christians. Okay. Now, let's have a look at another video. And okay, this will be. Okay. Right.
So if you want,
Now I want this one.
okay.
Thank you. Yep. Yes.
Is it?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. These are Ethiopian Christians, and they are chanting for the feast of Saint Michael. Those of you who know how to read Ethiopian characters, what that says is Nola Yehovah Israel, the shepherd of Israel. That's what it means. And they are taking this story in the Old Testament, in the Hebrew Bible, and chanting it, or changing it into a chanting for Saint Michael the Archangel. Okay? And look at the headgear that they are wearing. Listen to, if you are specialists in music, look at the tones, the melody, and look at the instruments that they use. Okay. Okay. This is in the middle of the night. This is happening in the middle of the night. Okay. And it will be going on for hours and hours. It's a very old, very ancient liturgical practice of the Christianity in the Horn that grew in the Horn of Africa. And it is where you see the mixture of African cultures, indigenous belief systems, and Christianity all together meshed into one beautiful liturgical phenomenon. Now, this music that you heard among the Ethiopian Jews and also Ethiopian Christians, they call it Yaredic chanting. Yaredic. Why? After this very elusive Christian music figure named Saint Yared. That's how they call him. Somewhere around the 500s. We don't know much about him. We don't even know whether he existed at all. But for whatever reason, this music that you see in the Horn of Africa, this liturgical music, is attributed to him, as he lived through the 6th century of Ethiopian Christianity. We are told he came up with this beautiful music and he gave it to Ethiopian Christianity, and then it flourished after that. How much evidence do we have about him? Not much. But we know the music existed for a long time. The musical corpus that you see, you meet in Ethiopian Christianity, Ethiopian Judaism, it definitely traces its roots back to somewhere around 6th, 7th century. So he probably existed at that time. It's very likely. Like he existed, this person named Yared. It's like the equivalent will be Romanos the Melodist. Romanos the Melodist from the Byzantine Empire. Okay? And this Ethiopian music, this Horn of Africa and liturgical music, is a very interesting thing. You will see it also among Ethiopian Muslims, not in Islam, not just Ethiopian Muslims. In Islam, let me take you to this figure. This is called the first Hijrah. The first Hijrah happened, according to the hadith sources that we have, when the Prophet Muhammad was persecuted by the Quraysh, and he was not even yet accepted at that time, we are told. And when the Quraysh were persecuting him, he told some of his Sahaba, his friends, his followers, to go to cross the Red Sea and go to this righteous kingdom across the Red Sea, which would be the Aksumite Empire, the Ethiopian Empire. And these people crossed the Red Sea, something like this, thanks to AI again. You know, they crossed, then they came to the Red Sea and then met this very interesting king, according to the hadith, King Ashama ibn Abjar, or in brief, they call him Al-Najashi in Islamic sources. Al-Najashi. It means it's like a corruption of the word, the Ge'ez word nugus, means king. So what happened? Well, these refugees came to Ethiopia. When they came to Ethiopia, they were accepted by the Christian king, but the Quraysh came and wanted their extradition from Ethiopia, and it was Ja'far, one of the companions of the Prophet, who will defend the refugees, who will represent and defend the refugees. And the king said, you know, you Quraysh people, stop persecuting them. They have come here. Now we are going to give them refuge. Leave them alone. Let them live here. And we are told they remained in Ethiopia for some time to live freely. Some of them actually, we are told, remained there. Some of them, we are also told, became Christians. That is a different story. So this movement of Muslims, the first Muslims, to Ethiopia is called the first Hijrah. The first Hijrah. Then after that, they will be returning when the Prophet Muhammad would be accepted to Madinatul Nabi. They will return, some of them will return back, at least some of them will return back and continue their lives with the Prophet. But Islam, we are told, was established in Ethiopia, in the Horn of Africa, before it was established in the Arabian regions. The people of the Horn of Africa would love to claim everything as we are the first, right? It seems like that. But apparently, they have a good reason to do so. Okay. Now, go back to the musical thinking. or this music, liturgical music of the Horn of Africa. Does anybody know about this guy? Aha, yes, the one who calls Azan, Mu'azzin, the one who calls Azan, the one who calls the Muslims for prayer. Okay? Who was the first Mu'azzin? The first Mu'azzin. Any thoughts? Yes. Yes. Bilal whom? Bilal al-Habashi. Bilal al-Habashi. Why was he called Habashi? Because he had Ethiopian roots. That's why. Bilal al-Habashi. And the liturgical music, the melody that you hear from this region, if you are a music nerd, you'll know that there is a lot of sharing. There's a lot of sharing between is like a Quranic recitation and these Christian liturgical singings in this region. Probably because the first Mu'azzin was Ethiopian, probably, or Habashi, and there were Ethiopian Christians even in the 6th century in southern Arabia. It's no wonder there is a lot of similarities. Now I want you to go to page 5. Page 5. Whom do you meet there? I took this icon, these are called icons, from the Orthodox Church in America, the OCA website. The Orthodox Church in America has this icon of Saint Elesban. This is how he's referred in Muslim sources, Saint Elesban. Who is this Elesban? Okay. This is an Ethiopian Christian king who lived in the early 6th century. And in the early 6th century, this king had an expedition to southern Arabia, what we call today Yemen. As you know earlier, as you have read earlier, Izana used to claim that he was also the king of Himyar. Where is Himyar? Himyar is in southern Arabia. Even though he was the king of Aksum and he was ruling from the western shores of the Red Sea, he was claiming dominance over the eastern shores of the Red Sea also. So there was definitely a connection. 6th century, this region, what we call today Yemen and Saudi Arabia, there is a particular place called Najran. Not today, it is in southern Saudi Arabia. But back in the day, it used to be before this the chaos. It used to be part of Yemen. Okay, this Najran, there was an Ethiopian Christian population affiliated and claiming pledging allegiance to the Ethiopian empire across the Red Sea. Okay. But sometimes they were not always loyal vassals to the Ethiopian empire. They usually rebelled against it. Because what are they going to do? We are across the Red Sea. What are they going to do? So, 6th century, there was, we are told, a Jewish ruler, a Jewish political leader whose name is Duhu Noas. He has multiple names. Yusuf Athar or Duhu Noas. This guy rises and we are told persecuted Christians. And when the Christians were persecuted, there was this uproar in the Christian world, and particularly the Byzantine Emperor Justinian was not happy about it. And he was lobbied by Christian groups to do something about this persecution of Christians because Byzantine Empire was a Christian empire. But Justinian was, it's like, I'm not sure about it. If I go there, my army could probably be wiped out. That's a very foreign territory. How about convincing the Ethiopian king to go and, reclaim their territory? So he actually sent some diplomats to convince the Ethiopian king we don't know what the response of the Ethiopian king was in letters, but in practice, we know what they did. Emperor Caleb, that's his name, Caleb, he crossed the Red Sea and defeated the Jewish king. His name is Yusuf Attar. There are very gruesome pictorial representations of what happened that were done in the Middle Ages, and I'm not going to show you that. I'm not going to show you that. But he defeated the Jewish king Dunoas and reestablished the Christians there. That incident was recognized by the Christians of the 6th century across the Christian Mediterranean world. Because of this, that king, King Caleb, or Allah Asbaha, that's also his name in the Ethiopic sources, Allah Asbaha, his name was renowned and recorded in history as the saintly king who saved Christians from Jewish persecution in Yemen or in Najran. Does this make sense? This is the story. This is why he is still mentioned in the synaxaries of Orthodox churches, as also in the Catholic Church. Also, he's remembered. Not only in the Orthodox churches, he's remembered as King El-Lasban. So this is definitely a Christian empire that we have at this time in history in the Horn of Africa, that tried to flex its muscles across the region, across the Red Sea. Does this make sense? Questions? Before I jump into the other story, the other excerpt that we have. Now we are going to meet some very beautiful lady. We will jump straight to 10th century. Here we have Ethiopian king to King George of Nubia. You see that little letter there? These are primary sources, all of them that you have there. Primary sources that tell the story of the region in the snippets. Thanks to AI, I have this beautiful picture about this lady about whom we have very little information. Her name is Yodit, according to Ethiopian folklore, oral stories, oral tradition, okay? According to Ethiopian oral tradition, this lady, her name was Yodit. That was a kind of, we are told, it's a corruption of Yehudit, meaning the Jewess. Was she a Jew? We have no idea. But that's how the oral tradition refers to her. This lady in 10th century, out of nowhere, we don't know where she came from. She rose and brought the Christian empire to its knees. Her dominance remained somewhere around okay, this is not what I want. Okay, no. Her dominance stayed somewhere around 40 years, for about 4 decades, we are told. Who was this lady? We have no idea. But with her rise, the Christian Aksum was almost completely defeated. How do we know that? From the letter of one of the kings of Aksum written to another king in the region. In today's terms, it will be Sudan. Okay, one of the kingdoms of Sudan was there were about 4 kingdoms of Nubia, and he was writing to one of the kingdoms. And this king is King George. This is a known king in history, and we have this letter to him. We got this source from the History of the Patriarchs of Alexandria. It's a very good source for those of you who are interested in studying that region. In the days of Patriarch Philotheos, this is 10th century, as you can see, the king of Abyssinia sent to the king of Nubia a youth whose name was George, and made known to him how the Lord has chastened him, he and the inhabitants of his land. It was that a woman, a queen of Bani al-Hamwiya, this is the only the only name that we have from any other source, from any source. The oral tradition has her Yodit or our Izhato, the fiery one, but this is Bani al-Hamiyya, this is from the Arabic sources, and this is the only thing we have. What does it mean? We have no idea. Bani al-Hamiyya had revolted against him and his country. She took captive many people from it and burned many cities and destroyed churches and drove the king from place to place. That which befell him was a retribution for what the king who was before him had done to the metropolitan in the days of the father Abba Cosmas, as we explained earlier. What is he talking about? Okay, he's telling us that this Egyptian writer from the Egyptian Christians, okay? He's telling us like, yeah, these Ethiopians, they were mean, they were not nice to the metropolitan. We, the Egyptians, sent, and God, to punish them, he sent this very fiery woman and destroyed their kingdom. That's what he's telling us. What is this relationship between Ethiopians and Egyptians? 4th century, when Ethiopia became a Christian kingdom, it got its first bishop from Egypt. Okay? And the person who ordained the first Ethiopian bishop was none other than Athanasius of Alexandria, 4th century, the guy who was exiled from his patriarchate 5 times. Yes, he was kicked out of his bishopric 5 times because, yeah, he was a very fierce guy. So this was the guy who ordained the first bishop for Ethiopia. And after that, the Ethiopian church remained affiliated to the Coptic church. Back in the day, it used to be the Church of Alexandria. Okay? The Patriarchate of Alexandria was the Patriarchate of Ethiopia also. Ethiopia used to get its bishops from Alexandria. And the Egyptians, particularly after 1270, they wanted to hold on to this position so firmly, and they will even invent a rule that says, no Ethiopian person should be a bishop. If he is black, that means he's not supposed to be a bishop. Yeah, that's how they did it. That's how they did it. Yeah, they put it in the church canon, and the good Ethiopians accepted it and lived under it for the most part. But usually they would rebel, sometimes they would rebel against it. Why do the Egyptians want this? This definitely will take us to this period that came after Queen Yodit, this Queen Yodit. After her, when the Aksumite Empire was, brought to its knees by her power, by her might, the ruling elite might have retreated to this, very likely retreated to the southern part of the empire, which was very remote. We'll talk more about it when we talk about modern politics and modern history and the modern development in the region. We'll talk about how geography really plays in whatever happens in the region. So these people, we call the Zagwe dynasty, after the Aksumite was kind of collapsing, they formed themselves, the ruling elite formed themselves in the southern part of the region, and they established a dynasty as a continuation of the Aksumite time. This dynasty is called the Zagwe dynasty. These people are known for their beauty, like carving beautiful churches out of rocks. You see this? Any of you have been here? Okay, this place is called Lalibela. Please, if you have money or the chance to travel around the world, make sure you see this place. It is a marvel to see. It's a marvel. There are about 11 churches that are hewn from rocks. This is one big rock. So they drilled the rock, and then they drilled in, and they created a church. And this church has been standing for the last almost 1,000 years. And it's still in service, even today. It's still in service. And there are about 10 more like this. They are not as, their architecture is not as majestic as this one, but they still are worth looking at. This is the period of the Zagwe dynasty. During this period, the Zagwe dynasty actually wanted to have independence from the Egyptians. Not only the Egyptians, they wanted to reduce the hurdle that Christians were going through to go to the Holy Land, Jerusalem, Israel. That they refer to, the Christians refer to, particularly the Christians of the Middle Ages, refer to that place as a site of pilgrimage. The Holy Land, as the name indicates, the Holy Land, it's sight to see. So Ethiopian Christians, in order to reach Jerusalem, they have to trek through the brutal Egyptian desert, following the route of Nile, across the Sinai desert, all the way to the Middle East. One of the kings, named Lalibela, this is his name, Lalibela, he said, why do we have to go all the way to Jerusalem? We can create Jerusalem of our own, an African Jerusalem, here in Ethiopia. This is how he started to build or to carve out these 11 churches in one particular region in his kingdom. He tried to recreate the sites in Jerusalem and Bethlehem, where Christians would go to visit. There is even one stream of water, okay, one artificial river that he made flow through these, like between these churches, and he named it the River Jordan. The River Jordan. So it was an attempt to recreate the Holy Land in Africa. Why? Because he wanted to be independent from all the chaos and the crusades and everything that was going on in there. Okay. Another very important incident with the development at this time would be there was another king before him. His name was Harbe. Harbe would actually demand that the Egyptians should ordain 10 bishops for Ethiopians. And the Egyptians said, nope, we are not going to do that. You know what? Okay, let me tell you. When the Ethiopians presented this request, they sent the request to the Muslim leaders of Egypt, not to the patriarchate, the Egyptian Christian patriarchate, but to the Muslim leaders of Egypt. And the Muslim leaders of Egypt saw the question and said, yeah, this is good. Send them some 10 bishops. They are looking for 10 bishops, give them 10 bishops. Yeah, because the request didn't come just simply. It came with gold and ivory and silver and a lot of gifts. So the leaders were okay with it. However, the patriarchate was not happy about it. You know what? Because every single time the patriarchate ordains a bishop, it gets a lot of money. A lot of money. And the thousands of silver and gold and all these exorbitant and exotic gifts. And they wanted to keep that coming. So they threatened, the Egyptian patriarchate threatened the Muslim rulers of Egypt, saying, if we allow the Ethiopians to have 10 bishops, then they will have their own patriarchate. That means they would not be coming to Egypt looking for metropolitans or bishops. That means no money for you and no money for us. Not only that, the Ethiopians will start making wars against Egypt in collaboration with the Nubians. The Nubians mean the Sudanese, well, in today's terms, the Sudanese. And this made the Muslim leaders of Egypt of the time to think twice. It was like, okay, I think you are right. Another time, the Egyptian patriarch had some issues with the Muslim leaders of Egypt, and the Muslim leader put the Egyptian patriarch in prison. At this time, we are told the Ethiopian emperor received a letter from the Egyptian patriarchate saying, look, the suffering that we are going through, please, king, help us. And the Ethiopian king sent a letter saying, okay, release the patriarch or I'm going to cut off the Nile. Yeah, I'm going to cut off the Nile if you don't release this bishop called Mike. That's his name. And then the Egyptian leaders said, oh, okay, we are going to have a problem here, so release Michael. Then the patriarch was released, we are told. So this time is a very interesting time in Ethiopian history, in the history of the Horn of Africa. It is a time of connection. It is a time of independence. It is a time of retaining whatever the glorious past of the Aksumite period, and also a time of this unique architectural developments. Okay. So, any questions so far? Any questions? Okay. Now, let me take you to Europe. Let's go to Europe. I mean, not physical. You see this very interesting picture? Yeah. In page 7, the map, this will be from our. Okay. This is the map made by medieval Europe. With a very general map. Okay. Here is Africa. Okay, this is Africa. And they got it's a very good attempt, right? For the medieval. They did good. They did really good. And what is special about this region that we call the Horn of Africa? What do you see there in the map? What is the one interesting fact that they caught, particularly compared to the northern part of Africa? What is it? You see those little lines that looks like roots? You see those? What are those? Rivers, exactly. Rivers. This region we call the Horn of Africa. It's a very mountainous region. And it is the water tower of the entire region. Egypt gets its Nile from here, from this region. And it is because of these waters that civilization was able to be sustained and flourish in this region, in the upper Nile stream countries, Egypt and Nubia at that time. This region, for Europeans back in the days, it is a mountainous region. So they hear about it. They hear that there is a very powerful kingdom there. It is a Christian kingdom. They also hear that story about King al-Lasban, okay, Saint al-Lasban, who went all the way to Yemen and conquered the person who was, or the political apparatus that was persecuting Christians. So when they had to wage these wars after wars of the Crusades and got really beaten up when they come to the Middle East, they started to crave for an ally, a powerful ally who lives close to the Middle East, who will support them in their arduous trek from Western Europe all the way to the Middle East, who will come to their aid and help them to defeat this Saracens, these Muslims ruling in the Holy Land. So they started to fantasize about this empire in the Horn of Africa, ruling the world, ruling that part of the world with absolute might. And they called this person Prester John of Indies. Indies would be India, to mean India, because they used to mix those two places as one. India, like the today's Indian region, that region, and the Horn of Africa. They usually get mixed up. So they started calling this kingdom as Indies, and the king ruling over it as Prester John of Indies. Prester means the priest and the king. He's not just a king, he's also a priest. For one thing, they were right. During the time of Lalibela, during the time of the Zagwe dynasty, we had at least one king who was not only a king, but also a priest. So the name didn't come out of the blue. There was some historical seasoning, historical seed that was based, that served as a seed. But it was, as time goes by and the distance between those two places, Western Europe and Africa, is, very difficult for commute. People start to have these fantasies, particularly after their crushing defeat in the Crusades. They started to fantasize about this powerful emperor who have a very vast kingdom with riches and many, many, many people, unconquerable people. And he's also the priest of his nation, kind of the high priest. So they started to have this kind of image about him. Here he is, you see, holding a kind of a scepter, but it has a cross on it, and he's wearing a crown. So he is Prester John of Indies in the European imagination. This, however, was nothing for Ethiopians. The Ethiopians, they didn't care about this stuff. When the Ethiopians, particularly in the 1300s, they start to go to, they started to have official diplomatic visits to Europe, particularly this dynasty. The dynasty before that, the Zagwe dynasty, we don't know much, like how their diplomatic connection was. But this dynasty, we know that in the 1300s, they started to have diplomatic connection with Europe, and they even tried to have arranged marriages between all these ruling classes in Venice. And so that, they can have this very strong royal fraternal bond so that they can rule on both sides of the Mediterranean Sea and crush the Egyptians in the middle. That's the plan. So money and power, huh? So they started to fantasize about this Prester John of Indies. And as time goes by, when Ethiopians start to go to Europe, they ask the Ethiopians, like, oh, is your king also a priest? And the Ethiopians would say, like, for whatever reason, it's like, yeah. So he's Prester John of Indies. Yeah, your kingdom is a very powerful kingdom. Yeah, yes, naam. Do you expect them, like, probably the Ethiopians, like, what? What is he talking about? Whatever. Yeah, tell him yes. The Ethiopians really were not into this narrative, but they just went along with it because it helped them to have an easier diplomatic connection, to form easier diplomatic relationship with the empire, like the ruling classes or those cities, city-states in southern, northern Mediterranean region. Now, this relationship will give birth to what happened in the 1600s. This is This is the Ottoman Empire. I want to bring your attention to this guy. I'm jumping into the 1500s. 1500s, there is this guy, Imam Ahmed Ibrahim of Adal. Adal is one of the Muslim sultanates in the Horn of Africa. After the 10th century, we start to see these Muslim sultanates flourishing across the Horn of Africa, and particularly after the 1400, the late 1300s and early 1400s, Adal started to kind of dominate all the other Muslim sultanates in the region. These Muslim sultanates, sometimes they would have a good relationship with the Christian empire, and they will pay tributes and they will be vassals. Sometimes they rebel. When they rebel, there will be wars, okay, conflicts and bloody conflicts. 1500s, this guy rose to power in the Sultanate of Adal, and then he was able to muster some support, some geopolitical support from the Ottoman Empire. The Ottoman Empire had interest in the Red Sea, exactly like today, right now. The Turkish government had signed a deal right here of fishing, oil, and other like military agreements with the Somalian government, and the deal was brutal. It was 90% to 10%. Like Turkey will take 90%, that Somalia will take 10%. That was the deal. So the interest, even back in the days, was there. Okay. So this guy gathered support from the Ottoman Empire because we are Muslims. We will conquer this Christian empire and make the entire region a Muslim region. Okay. And the Ottomans said, yeah, good, go ahead. So he was able to defeat the Christian kingdom and its armies and rule Ethiopia for about 15 years. At this time, the Ethiopian Christian Empire sent a letter to Europe, particularly to Portugal. They sent a letter saying, we need help. We are really getting crushed by this guy. So can you please help us? And if you remember, at this time, the guns were changing geopolitics. Okay? Rifles were changing geopolitics. And these guys were like the Imam Ahmed Ibrahim of Adal, and his army was armored by the Turkish with rifles. So they outgunned the Christian Horn of African army. So he was able to rule the region for about 15 years. After on his 13th year of rule, the Portuguese came to Ethiopia to support the Ethiopian Christian Empire. And when they came, it took them about 2 years. There were about 500 soldiers. 200 of them will be killed in the first battle they would have with the Imam Ahmed's army. And then the rest, 300, will join forces with the remaining Christian soldiers and the emperor himself. And then they were able to defeat them, to defeat the Imam Ibrahim Ahmed al-Ghazi. After that, the Portuguese stayed. Why did they stay? Because this is a Christian place. This is a Christian empire. Why wouldn't they? Why wouldn't they stay? Look at the last page. Here, page 9. This is from the pages of a book written by Francisco Alvarez. Francisco Alvarez was a priest, a Portuguese priest, actually, who came to Ethiopia and visited this place. Before it was brought, it was defeat, like the Christian Empire before it was defeated by the Imam Ahmed's army. So he had recorded for us what the empire looked like before it was completely defeated, almost completely defeated by the Muslim army. And the picture he paints is this empire is a very rich Christian empire. Okay? So that means, yeah, like if we come here, if we, the Portuguese, come here and live here, we might have a good time. Okay? Academicians are missionaries come before colonization. So this is what he was suggesting. This is what the picture he was painting was a very good picture. So the Portuguese, when they came, they had like, yeah, we are coming here to support this President John of Indies. And well, they came here and tried to stay there. And then 1600, they stayed there for a little while. They didn't get along with the Ethiopian Christians though. Why? Because Ethiopian Christians, remember what I said earlier. This Christianity, yes, it is connected to the rest of Christianity in the world, but it has developed its own unique colors. These people, they circumcise. They don't eat pork. Yeah, they don't eat pork. They circumcise their children. And they have very strict Sabbath observance. Sabbath observance means they don't work on Saturdays and Sundays. Yes, and their Sabbath begins on Friday evening. So this is a very unique Christianity. So the Portuguese were very uncomfortable. So they were kind of given their own space first, but they still were not comfortable. Then some Jesuits start to come in from Europe. You know, Jesuits, this is a religious order that developed in the 1500s by St. Ignatius of Loyola. And this is they are known to be academics, very smart people, very sharp people, very mission oriented. So they start to come to Ethiopia and they saw the Ethiopian Christianity and they said, ooh, these people are not Christians. They are whatever they believe. It is a mixture of Judaism, Islam, and whatever religion there is. And it has some elements of Christianity, but they are not Christians. That's how they perceive, because their standard, the way they see Christianity was a European lens, through a European lens. So they said, this cannot be Christianity at all. These people are Jews or is Muslims. This led to proselytization efforts. Proselytization meaning converting the Christians to become Christians. Yes, exactly. Yes, exactly. It's like, what? Yeah. These are Ethiopian Christians. They need to be Roman Catholics. Otherwise, how can they be saved? That created a clash, a bloody clash between Ethiopian Christians and Ethiopian Christians. Because the Portuguese and some of the Jesuits were able to convince part of the population to accept the European version of Christianity. Roman Catholicism in the 1600s will be officially declared as the religion of the state by an emperor named Susenyos, who converted from Ethiopian Orthodoxy to Roman Catholicism. That was a point of explosion for the country's political situation. Thousands perished fighting against one another. And later, after particularly a battle in this place called Lasta, where 8,000 people were perished right away, on just one day, 8,000 people were killed. The king said, I'm done with this. I'm going to abdicate my power. So he abdicated his power and transferred his power to his son. And then Catholicism was banned. And all Catholics were given two options. Get out of the country, convert to Ethiopian Orthodoxy, or die. These were the options that they were given. If they don't choose one of the first two, the third option is death. Some people actually, some for Capuchins, Franciscans. There is a Capuchin order called the Franciscan order of Capuchins. A couple of Capuchins came to Ethiopia, sneaking, trying to serve some of the people remaining there, and they were hanged in public. They were executed for trying to enter the country. And after that, the country closed its door for any kind of European contact for the next 200 years. And instead, the doors would be open to the Islamic world, even though the Christian empire, the empire remained a Christian empire. So today, if you go to Ethiopia, and it's like, oh, there are Ethiopian Catholics, by the way. There are Ethiopian Catholics still today, but that will be a later development. After 200 years of that event, there will be a little bit of opening, and that will allow European missionaries to come and convert. This is a very brief kind of bird's eye view survey of the Horn of Africa. Questions, suggestions, or anything are mostly welcome. I think I should stop here. Otherwise, I can go on for days. Trust me. Questions? Comments? Anything? Yeah, anything interesting? Yeah, go through this material. This package is a very good collection of primary sources. I hope you will enjoy reading it.
What classes should they take with you next quarter?
Next quarter. I teach Amharic. There will be Amharic 102. There is another course that is coming that would be the Ethiopic Virgin Mary. And there is also another course called Holy People and Holy Places of the Horn of Africa, where we talk about saints from this region. Saints who are from this region you have never heard about, and you will read their hagiographies and how they are imagined. There is another course which is called the Ethiopic Virgin Mary. The Ethiopic Virgin Mary is the Virgin Mary, as you know her in Christianity, when she comes to Ethiopia, physically and literary, in a literary manner, she will be completely transformed into a very different figure. Trust me, you have never met the Ethiopian Virgin Mary anywhere. So I teach these courses. These are the two courses that I will be teaching in the spring and winter quarters. And more courses are there. And happy to be here, and thank you. Thank you.
On the email address, please come and do so. I'll put this up on the little podium thing. So we will be provided for it if it stays down.
You always do everything for me, but then you.
Thank you so much. This was awesome.
This is fun.
I really want to take your classes. It's an area of history I know nothing about. Just